When most people picture ancient Sparta, they imagine a civilization carved entirely from iron and discipline. A land where boys were hardened into warriors, where weakness was erased, and where the entire society existed for war. The image is powerful. It has been repeated for centuries in literature, art, and modern cinema. But the real Sparta was not a mythic battlefield frozen in time. It was a functioning society, rigid, controlled, and deeply structured, built on foundations that were far more complex than popular imagination allows. Sparta lay in the southern Peloponnese, in the fertile valley of the Eurotas River. Unlike Athens, it did not build monumental temples that dominate the skyline of history books. It did not produce famous philosophers or playwrights. It left behind relatively little writing of its own. Most of what we know about Spartan life comes from outsiders. Historians like Herodotus and Thucydides, and later writers such as Xenophon and Plutarch. That fact alone should caution us. Sparta's reputation was shaped by observers who admired it, feared it, or opposed it. Yet certain realities are consistent across sources and archaeological evidence. Sparta was a society designed around control. Its power emerged not from trade or maritime expansion, but from conquest. In the 8th and 7th centuries BC, Sparta fought a series of wars against neighboring Messenia. The outcome reshaped the region permanently. The Messenians were defeated and reduced to a subjugated population known as helots. This was the foundation of Spartan life. The helots were tied to the land. They farmed the estates that sustained Spartan citizens. They delivered agricultural produce in fixed proportions, ensuring that the Spartan elite did not need to labor for survival. And this leads to the first shocking fact about life in ancient Sparta. Spartan citizens did not work. At least, not in the way other Greek citizens did. Athenian men farmed, traded, debated, and participated in craft production. Spartan male citizens, the Spartiates, were freed almost entirely from economic activity. Their occupation was preparation for war. This system was possible only because the helots vastly outnumbered them. Ancient sources suggest that helots may have comprised the majority of the population in Laconia and Messenia. While exact numbers are debated, historians agree that Spartan citizens were a minority ruling over a much larger labor force. This imbalance shaped every aspect of Spartan society. The second shocking fact is this: Sparta's military culture existed primarily to control its own territory. Modern imagination often portrays Sparta as aggressively expansionist. In reality, much of its military organization was focused inward. The fear of helot rebellion was constant. There were documented revolts, especially following moments of weakness such as natural disasters or military defeats. Spartan citizens lived with the awareness that their survival depended on maintaining dominance over a larger population. This produced a society of perpetual readiness. From early childhood, boys were prepared not merely to fight foreign enemies, but to uphold internal order. At the age of 7, Spartan boys entered the agoge, the state-run educational and training system. This was not optional. It was compulsory for male citizens. The agoge removed boys from their families and organized them into communal groups. They learned endurance, discipline, and obedience. They were trained to tolerate hunger and cold. They wore simple clothing year-round. They slept on reeds gathered from riverbanks. Physical training was central. Wrestling, running, weapons practice, these formed the core of daily life. But the agoge was also psychological conditioning. Boys were taught to suppress complaint. Public emotion was discouraged. Loyalty to the group was emphasized above individual desire. Some ancient accounts describe boys being encouraged to steal food as a test of stealth, punished not for stealing but for being caught. Modern scholars debate the literal accuracy of such anecdotes, but they reflect a broader cultural emphasis on cunning and self-control. By adolescence, Spartan boys had internalized a fundamental lesson: the state came before the family. Marriage did not immediately end communal living. Even after marrying, men continued to dine in communal mess groups known as syssitia. These shared meals reinforced equality among citizens and maintained military cohesion. Failure to contribute food portions to the syssitia could result in loss of full citizenship status. This reveals another surprising reality: Spartan citizenship was fragile. It required ongoing compliance, contribution, and honor. Those who failed to meet expectations could lose political rights and social standing. Spartan society was rigidly hierarchical. At the top were the Spartiates, full male citizens. Below them were the perioikoi, free inhabitants who engaged in trade and craftsmanship but lacked political rights. At the bottom were the helots. Movement between these classes was extremely rare. Now we encounter another shocking fact that challenges modern assumptions. Spartan women possessed unusual economic and social influence compared to women in other Greek city-states. In Athens, women were largely confined to domestic spaces. In Sparta, women exercised regularly, owned property, and managed estates while men were in barracks or on campaign. Archaeological and literary evidence suggests that Spartan women could inherit land. By the 4th century BC, a significant proportion of Spartan property was reportedly controlled by women. Their physical training was encouraged. Ancient writers note that Spartan girls participated in athletic exercises, based on the belief that strong mothers produced strong children. This relative autonomy did not mean equality in the modern sense. Women did not hold political office, but their public visibility and economic authority were distinctive within the Greek world. Still, every aspect of life in Sparta was subordinated to one overriding goal: stability through discipline. Luxury was discouraged. Gold and silver coinage were reportedly replaced with heavy iron currency in certain periods, reducing incentives for wealth accumulation. While the full extent of this reform is debated among historians, the ideological message was clear: extravagance was incompatible with Spartan values. Speech itself reflected austerity. Spartans were known for brevity. The term laconic, meaning concise and direct, derives from Laconia. Public oratory in Sparta was restrained compared to the elaborate rhetorical culture of Athens. Another unsettling reality concerns social pressure. Cowardice in battle carried profound consequences. Ancient sources describe social shaming, exclusion from communal meals, and reduced marriage prospects for those deemed to have failed militarily. Whether every detail recorded by later writers is accurate remains debated, but the cultural expectation of bravery is well supported. Honor was not symbolic. It structured daily life. And yet, despite its formidable discipline, Sparta was not immune to decline. Over time, strict citizenship rules, wealth concentration, and military casualties reduced the number of full citizens dramatically. By the 4th century BC, the citizen body had shrunk significantly compared to earlier generations. A society built on elite military identity faced demographic pressure. The final shocking truth of this opening examination is perhaps the most important. Sparta was not simply a warrior state. It was a social experiment in total organization. Family bonds were secondary to collective identity. Economic life was outsourced to a subjugated population. Personal ambition was constrained by communal expectation. For centuries, this system produced stability and military effectiveness. But beneath the surface, it required constant vigilance and constant control. And daily life inside that system was far more disciplined, structured, and psychologically demanding than the romantic image of shield walls and heroic last stands suggests. The stability of Sparta rested on something rarely emphasized in heroic retellings: fear. Not the dramatic fear of an approaching foreign army, but the constant awareness that the entire system depended on maintaining control over a much larger population. The helots were essential to Spartan survival. They cultivated the land, harvested grain, produced olive oil and wine, and delivered fixed agricultural quotas to Spartan households. This arrangement allowed Spartan citizens to dedicate themselves almost entirely to military training and communal obligations. But it also meant that the ruling minority depended on the obedience of the majority, and that obedience could never be taken for granted. Ancient writers describe a society that deliberately cultivated intimidation as a tool of governance. One of the most debated institutions in Spartan life was the Krypteia. While details vary across sources, it appears to have involved selected young Spartan men sent into the countryside, tasked with monitoring helot activity and, in some cases, eliminating individuals considered physically strong or politically influential. Modern historians disagree on whether the Krypteia functioned primarily as secret police, as a survival training exercise, or as a ritualized form of social control. What is clear is that the relationship between Spartans and helots was structured around dominance reinforced by threat. Sparta's military system was therefore not simply outward-facing. It was internal insurance. This reality shaped everyday life for Spartan citizens as well. The agoge had prepared boys for discipline, but adulthood brought another layer of structure, the syssitia, the communal dining groups. Every full male citizen was required to belong to one. Each member contributed food from his estate. Failure to meet the required contribution could result in loss of full civic status. These shared meals reinforced equality among citizens, at least in principle. They reduced visible economic differences and strengthened loyalty within the group. The famous black broth, often mentioned by ancient writers, symbolized austerity and shared hardship. Whether its taste was truly as unpleasant as some accounts claim is less important than what it represented: simplicity over luxury. Individual wealth display was discouraged. Spartan society valued uniformity. Speech, too, reflected restraint. Spartans were known for brevity. The cultural preference for concise, direct expression was so distinctive that the term laconic still refers to blunt or economical speech. Elaborate rhetorical flourish, common in Athens, was not admired in Sparta. Silence could carry authority. The political structure of Sparta reinforced this balance between authority and restraint. It was neither a pure monarchy nor a simple oligarchy. Two hereditary kings ruled simultaneously, sharing military and religious duties. Alongside them operated the Gerousia, a council of elders over 60 years of age, and 5 ephors elected annually. The ephors held significant power. They oversaw education, managed foreign policy, and could even bring charges against kings. This created a system of internal accountability that, while limited to a narrow citizen body, prevented single-person rule from becoming absolute. Yet participation in governance was restricted strictly to full male citizens. Women, helots, and perioikoi had no formal political voice. Another unsettling aspect of Spartan life concerned marriage and family structure. Marriage was encouraged as a civic duty. Producing strong offspring was seen as contributing to the state. Some ancient accounts describe unusual wedding rituals, including symbolic gestures meant to emphasize transition and endurance. While certain details recorded by later writers may contain embellishment, the broader theme remains consistent. Personal relationships were framed within communal expectations. Even after marriage, Spartan men continued to live in barracks until around the age of 30. Domestic life did not replace communal military identity. A man's primary loyalty remained with his cohort. Spartan women, however, occupied a distinctive position within Greek society. They exercised publicly. They owned and inherited property. They managed estates while men trained or campaigned. Archaeological and literary evidence indicates that women played a substantial economic role, particularly as male citizen numbers declined over time. This relative autonomy surprised and sometimes unsettled other Greeks. Aristotle criticized what he perceived as excessive female influence in later Sparta, arguing that property concentration among women contributed to demographic imbalance. Whether his assessment was fully accurate remains debated, but it underscores internal tensions within Spartan society. Control extended beyond law and ritual into reputation. Cowardice in battle could result in social consequences. Ancient sources describe forms of public shaming or reduced civic participation for those who failed expectations. While the exact procedures remain debated, honor was clearly central to social standing. To live in Sparta was to live under expectation. Boys were shaped by discipline. Men were measured by courage and contribution. Women were evaluated through estate management and motherhood. Helots were bound by labor and intimidation. Every layer of society was structured around preserving balance. Yet this balance required constant reinforcement. The Spartan system eliminated many sources of internal competition, luxury, political demagoguery, commercial rivalry among citizens, but it could not eliminate demographic reality. Over time, strict citizenship requirements and inheritance patterns concentrated land among fewer families. As the number of full citizens declined, the ratio between rulers and helots grew more precarious. A society that depended on domination could not afford weakness. Spartan life was disciplined, restrained, and controlled. But beneath that control was tension between minority and majority, between austerity and necessity, between rigidity and adaptation. The image of Sparta as a society of fearless warriors captures only the surface. The deeper truth reveals a system that required vigilance at every level, social, economic, and psychological, to sustain itself. And sustaining it demanded more than battlefield courage. It demanded obedience, conformity, and a willingness to subordinate individual desire to collective survival. Spartan identity was inseparable from warfare, yet the reality of its military culture was more disciplined and calculated than the dramatic imagery often suggests. The Spartan army was built around the hoplite phalanx, a formation that depended on cohesion above all else. Each soldier carried a large round shield, the aspes, designed not only for personal defense but to protect the man standing to his left. In battle, survival depended on maintaining formation. Individual heroics meant little if they disrupted the line. This emphasis on unity shaped training from childhood. By the time a Spartan male reached adulthood, he had spent years in structured physical conditioning. Endurance exercises, mock combat, group drills, and competitive contests prepared him for the demands of heavy infantry warfare. But Spartan training was not constant battlefield rehearsal. It was conditioning for discipline, the ability to stand firm, obey command, and trust the line. Contrary to modern assumptions, Spartan soldiers were not professional soldiers in the modern sense. They did not serve as a permanent paid army deployed year-round across distant provinces. They were citizen soldiers, called upon when needed, supported by a system that freed them from agricultural labor. Their readiness, however, was exceptional within the Greek world. The Persian Wars in the early 5th century BC solidified Sparta's reputation. At the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC, King Leonidas led a small allied Greek force to block the Persian advance. The 300 Spartan citizens who accompanied him became symbolic of sacrifice and resolve. Yet historical clarity requires nuance. The Spartan contingent at Thermopylae was part of a larger Greek coalition. Thespians, Thebans, and others also remained in the final defense. The stand at Thermopylae delayed the Persian advance but did not end it. Later battles, including Salamis and Plataea, ultimately determined the outcome of the war. Sparta's contribution was significant, but it functioned within broader alliances. Following the Persian Wars, Sparta maintained dominance on land within the Peloponnese. Its disciplined infantry made it a formidable power in mainland Greece. However, its military strengths were specialized. Sparta was not a naval power. When the Peloponnesian War began in 431 BC, the contrast between Sparta and Athens became clear. Athens possessed a powerful fleet and a maritime empire. Sparta controlled strong land forces but lacked comparable naval capacity. For much of the war, this imbalance shaped strategy. Athens avoided direct land confrontation while using its navy to project power and maintain supply lines. Sparta conducted annual invasions of Athenian territory but struggled to force decisive outcomes. Only later, with financial support from Persia, did Sparta develop a fleet capable of challenging Athenian dominance at sea. The eventual Spartan victory in 404 BC marked the height of its political influence. Yet victory revealed limitations. Administering a wider sphere of influence required diplomatic flexibility and economic engagement, areas where Sparta's rigid system was less adaptable. Attempts to install oligarchic governments in former Athenian territories generated resistance. The discipline that unified Spartan citizens did not automatically translate into effective imperial governance. Another important reality complicates the myth of Spartan invincibility. Spartans could be defeated. At the Battle of Sphacteria in 425 BC, during the Peloponnesian War, Athenian forces trapped a group of Spartan soldiers on an island. After prolonged resistance, several surrendered. The event shocked the Greek world because Spartan surrender was considered rare. Yet the surrender demonstrated a practical truth. Spartans, like all soldiers, responded to circumstance. The aura of inevitability surrounding Spartan victory was powerful, but not absolute. The most decisive challenge to Spartan dominance came in 371 BC at the Battle of Leuctra. The Theban general Epaminondas employed an innovative tactical approach, concentrating his strongest forces on one flank in an unusually deep formation. This targeted the elite Spartan contingent directly. The result was devastating for Sparta. The defeat shattered its military supremacy and weakened its hold over Messenia. Freed from Spartan control, Messenia regained independence, removing a crucial economic base that had sustained Spartan society for centuries. This loss exposed a structural vulnerability. Sparta's military strength depended on its social system. As citizen numbers declined over generations due to inheritance concentration and war casualties, the pool of full Spartiates capable of serving in the phalanx shrank. By the 4th century BC, the number of full citizens had fallen dramatically compared to earlier centuries. The phalanx required numbers as well as discipline. A society that restricted citizenship tightly faced demographic pressure. Unlike Athens, which could expand citizenship in response to need, Sparta maintained rigid eligibility standards. This preserved exclusivity but limited flexibility. Military culture also shaped personal honor. Courage was not merely admired, it was expected. Ancient sources describe social consequences for those who displayed cowardice in battle. While specific punishments vary across accounts, there is evidence of social isolation, reduced civic participation, and reputational damage for perceived failure. Honor structured social life as much as legal status did. But Spartan warfare was not reckless aggression. Spartan commanders were often cautious, preferring strategic positioning over impulsive engagement. The discipline of the phalanx demanded patience and coordination. Success depended less on dramatic charges and more on maintaining formation under pressure. Training reinforced this restraint. The agoge emphasized endurance, but it also emphasized control. Emotional outbursts were discouraged. Silence and composure were cultivated. The ability to remain steady in formation was valued above individual display. This steadiness contributed to Sparta's early successes. Yet as warfare evolved, new tactics and formations began to challenge traditional methods. The deep column used by Thebes at Leuctra demonstrated that innovation could overcome rigid orthodoxy. Spartan reluctance to adapt quickly became a liability. Military reputation had sustained Spartan prestige for generations. But reputation alone could not preserve dominance. After Leuctra, Sparta never fully recovered its former influence. It remained culturally distinct and symbolically powerful, but politically diminished. The rise of Macedon under Philip II and later Alexander the Great shifted the center of Greek power northward. Sparta continued to exist, but it no longer shaped the direction of the Greek world. The enduring image of Spartan warriors, disciplined, silent, unbreakable, contains truth. Their training was rigorous. Their cohesion was formidable. Their commitment to collective identity was genuine. Yet that image tells only part of the story. Spartan military excellence was inseparable from a narrow social base. It depended on a shrinking citizen body ruling over a larger labor force. It thrived under conditions of stability but struggled under demographic and tactical change. For the individual Spartan male, life was defined by preparation for conflict. From childhood through adulthood, expectations revolved around service. Honor was measured publicly. Failure carried consequence. War was not an occasional interruption to daily life. It was the organizing principle of identity. And as long as the system held, as long as citizen numbers were sufficient, helot control was secure, and battlefield tactics remained predictable, Sparta maintained its reputation. When those conditions shifted, the limits of that system became visible. The legend of Sparta survived long after its political dominance faded. Admirers praised its discipline. Critics condemned its rigidity. But the lived experience of those within it was neither pure glory nor pure oppression. It was structured endurance within a society that valued stability above all else, even when stability required sacrifice. Military prestige often obscures another dimension of Spartan life: its economic structure and the internal inequalities that slowly reshaped the state from within. Sparta projected an image of equality among its citizens. Public meals were shared. Luxury was discouraged. Displays of personal wealth were limited by custom and ideology. In theory, each Spartan citizen possessed a land allotment sufficient to support his required contribution to communal life. But over time, reality diverged from ideal. Land in Laconia and Messenia formed the backbone of Spartan wealth. These estates were worked by helots, who delivered agricultural produce to sustain the citizen body. Originally, tradition holds that land was divided in a way that ensured relative parity among citizens. Whether this division was ever perfectly equal remains debated among historians, but the principle of balanced allotments became central to Spartan identity. Inheritance practices gradually altered that balance. Property passed through family lines, and over generations, estates became concentrated. Marriages, dowries, and demographic fluctuations intensified this process. When a citizen died without male heirs, land could pass through daughters, and accumulated holdings sometimes merged into larger estates. By the 4th century BC, a significant portion of Spartan land was reportedly held by a relatively small number of families. This concentration produced consequences that cut directly against Spartan ideology. Citizenship required financial contribution to the syssitia. Those unable to provide their share could lose full civic status. As wealth disparities widened, some men found themselves excluded from the very class that defined Spartan political life. The number of full citizens, already reduced by war casualties, declined further due to economic disqualification. Ancient observers noticed this trend. Aristotle, writing in the 4th century BC, criticized Sparta for allowing excessive concentration of property. He argued that this imbalance weakened the state by reducing the pool of eligible citizens. While Aristotle's perspective was shaped by his own political philosophy, his comments reflect genuine structural strain. Economic rigidity magnified demographic vulnerability. Sparta did not easily grant citizenship to outsiders. The perioikoi, free inhabitants engaged in trade and craftsmanship, lived under Spartan authority but did not share political rights. They played a crucial economic role, handling commerce and manufacturing that Spartan citizens avoided. However, integration into the citizen body remained rare. This separation preserved exclusivity but limited flexibility. Trade itself was carefully managed. Sparta did not pursue maritime commerce on the scale of Athens or Corinth. Its inland orientation and emphasis on agriculture shaped its economic character. Iron currency, whether fully enforced or partially symbolic, reflected ideological resistance to accumulation of portable wealth. Yet economic reality persisted. As Spartan military campaigns expanded during the Peloponnesian War and beyond, interaction with wider Greek markets increased. Wealth from foreign ventures entered Spartan society, complicating traditional norms. Attempts to maintain austerity confronted the practical realities of broader engagement. Another dimension of economic strain involved population decline. Full citizenship in Sparta required not only wealth but lineage and participation in the agoge. As citizen numbers fell, fewer men qualified to serve in the army and participate in governance. This decline became stark by the 4th century BC. The system had been designed for a larger citizen body supported by a vast helot workforce. When citizen numbers contracted, maintaining control over the helots grew more difficult. Military manpower decreased while dependence on subjugated labor remained constant. This imbalance intensified after the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC. The loss of Messenia removed a substantial portion of Spartan-controlled territory and freed many helots from servitude. The economic base that had sustained Spartan dominance for centuries was permanently reduced. Without Messenian agriculture, the Spartan state struggled to preserve its traditional structure. Efforts at reform emerged. In the 3rd century BC, kings such as Agis IV and Cleomenes III attempted to address inequality by redistributing land and restoring aspects of earlier Spartan discipline. Their reforms aimed to revive the citizen body and strengthen the military foundation. These attempts met resistance and ultimately failed to restore Sparta's former power. The reforms reveal something important about Spartan life. The system was not static. Leaders recognized decline and sought correction. But centuries of structural rigidity limited the scope of change. The social experiment that had once produced cohesion now constrained adaptation. Beyond economics and politics, daily Spartan life reflected this tension between ideology and reality. Citizens continued communal dining. Public discipline remained valued. Athletic competition and physical training endured. Religious festivals and rituals honored traditional gods and reinforced shared identity. Sparta did not collapse overnight. It persisted, maintaining distinctive customs even as its influence waned. Another revealing aspect of Spartan society concerns cultural production. Sparta is often described as artistically barren compared to Athens. While it did not produce the dramatic literature or philosophical schools associated with other Greek cities, this does not mean cultural life was absent. Music and poetry played roles in education and ceremony. Choral performances and martial songs reinforced unity. The poet Tertius, active during earlier conflicts, composed verses that encouraged discipline and courage. These works supported the state's ideological framework. Artistic expression, however, was generally subordinated to communal purpose. Spartan architecture was functional rather than monumental. Public spaces emphasized assembly and training rather than display. The city itself lacked the imposing structures that later symbolized Greek achievement elsewhere. This restraint aligned with Spartan values but also contributed to its later historical image. Admired for austerity, criticized for limitation. Family structure further reflected economic pressures. As estates concentrated, marriage alliances sometimes reinforced wealth consolidation. Women who could inherit property became central to these dynamics. Their economic authority increased in proportion to male citizen decline. This shift generated debate within Spartan society. Traditionalists valued discipline and equality among citizens. Economic reality produced disparity. Attempts to reconcile these forces defined much of Sparta's later history. Through all of this, the helot population remained integral. Even as Messenia gained independence, helots in Laconia continued agricultural labor. Control mechanisms persisted, though diminished territory altered the scale of dominance. The relationship between rulers and ruled remained uneasy. Spartan life, viewed from within, was not a constant state of heroic intensity. It was structured routine within a carefully maintained hierarchy. Training sessions, communal meals, agricultural oversight, religious observances, these defined ordinary existence. The dramatic moments of battle were infrequent compared to the steady rhythms of civic obligation. But those rhythms depended on balance. When land concentration reduced equality among citizens, balance shifted. When military defeat reduced territory, balance shifted. When citizen numbers declined, balance shifted. Sparta's founding principles emphasized permanence. Yet no society remains immune to change. By the Hellenistic period, Sparta occupied a diminished role in Greek politics. It retained cultural distinctiveness but lacked the power it once wielded. Later Roman observers admired aspects of Spartan discipline, sometimes romanticizing its past. The historical reality was more complex. Sparta's system produced resilience, but it also imposed limits. Its economic foundations enabled military focus, yet that same dependence created vulnerability. Equality among citizens was an aspiration challenged by inheritance and wealth concentration. Life in Sparta required conformity, endurance, and acceptance of hierarchy. It offered stability for generations, but at a cost measured not only in battlefield casualties, but in social rigidity that eventually narrowed the state's capacity to adapt. And as external powers rose and internal pressures accumulated, the disciplined order that once defined Sparta gradually transformed into a legacy rather than a dominant force. What ultimately distinguished Sparta was not only how it trained its warriors or organized its economy, but how completely it shaped identity from birth to death. From infancy, a Spartan's life was interpreted through the needs of the state. Ancient sources describe inspections of newborns by elders, assessing physical health and perceived strength. Modern historians debate the precise procedures and caution against assuming uniform practices, yet the broader principle is consistent across accounts. Physical fitness was highly valued, and weakness was culturally stigmatized. Childhood did not unfold in private domestic space as it did elsewhere in Greece. At 7, boys entered the agoge and began a communal existence defined by structure and discipline. Competition was constant. Loyalty to peers was reinforced daily. Hardship was normalized. But Spartan education was not purely physical. Music, rhythm, and coordinated movement played a role in training. Choral performance strengthened unity. Poetry reinforced martial values. Memory and oral tradition transmitted shared identity across generations. Silence, restraint, and brevity were cultivated deliberately. Speech was expected to be direct and controlled. A Spartan's reputation rested not on eloquence, but on reliability. As boys became adolescents, responsibilities intensified. They moved through age cohorts, assuming mentorship roles for younger groups. Hierarchy was embedded early. Authority flowed downward through experience rather than wealth. By early adulthood, a Spartan male's path was clearly defined. Membership in a syssitia, continued training, readiness for mobilization, participation in assembly when eligible, and contribution to estate management through oversight of helot labor. Private ambition was subordinate to communal expectation. Spartan women, meanwhile, experienced a distinct but equally structured life. Physical training was part of their upbringing, unusual among Greek city-states. Athletic contests for girls are referenced in ancient sources, suggesting that strength and endurance were admired qualities. Women managed estates, supervised labor, and maintained continuity during military campaigns. Their economic influence grew over time, especially as property became concentrated. In some periods, they controlled significant portions of Spartan land. Yet public political authority remained limited to male citizens. Influence operated indirectly through family networks and property rather than formal office. Marriage customs reinforced communal priorities. The primary objective was legitimate offspring who would strengthen the citizen body. Personal affection may well have existed, but public discourse framed marriage as civic duty. Old age brought another transformation. Men over 60 could serve on the Gerousia, the Council of Elders. Age conferred prestige. Experience translated into authority. Spartan society respected seniority, embedding governance within generational continuity. Religion also shaped daily life. Spartans participated in festivals honoring deities such as Artemis Orthia and Apollo. Ritual observances reinforced unity and cultural memory. Athletic contests, sacrifices, and communal celebrations provided moments of collective expression within an otherwise restrained society. Even religion, however, reflected discipline. Excessive display was rare. Rituals emphasized cohesion rather than spectacle. As centuries passed, the gap between Spartan ideals and realities widened. Citizenship numbers continued to decline. Military defeats reduced territory. Reform efforts attempted to restore earlier balance but struggled against entrenched inequality. Yet the cultural identity of Sparta endured. Roman writers later admired Spartan austerity, sometimes holding it up as a model of virtue in contrast to perceived decadence elsewhere. This admiration contributed to the survival of Spartan legend long after its political power faded. But legend simplifies. The lived experience of Sparta was structured endurance within a rigid hierarchy. It produced capable soldiers, disciplined citizens, and a society unusually resistant to rapid change. At the same time, it depended on subjugation, strict eligibility, and inflexible norms. The system that sustained Sparta for centuries required constant reinforcement. Helots labored under watchful authority. Citizens lived under expectation of honor and contribution. Women balanced estate management with communal responsibility. Elders preserved tradition while confronting gradual decline. Sparta did not disappear suddenly. It adapted unevenly, maintaining distinct customs even as its influence diminished under Macedonian and later Roman dominance. Its military prestige remained symbolic long after its strategic relevance waned. In examining the realities of life in ancient Sparta, the most striking conclusion is not simply that it was harsh or disciplined. It is that it represented one of the ancient world's most deliberate experiments in social engineering. Nearly every institution, education, marriage, property, governance, military organization, served a single overarching goal: stability through cohesion. For generations, that cohesion delivered results. Sparta commanded respect across Greece. Its soldiers were feared. Its order was admired by some and criticized by others. But cohesion came with limits. Rigid systems resist change. Exclusive citizenship narrows growth. Economic concentration undermines equality. Dependence on subjugated labor breeds tension. The mythology of Sparta celebrates shield walls and fearless stands. The historical reality reveals something quieter and more complex. A society that pursued discipline as its highest virtue, maintained dominance through structure rather than spectacle, and ultimately confronted the same challenge every rigid system faces: how to survive when the conditions that created it begin to shift. Life in ancient Sparta was not a continuous battlefield. It was a controlled environment built to produce warriors and preserve hierarchy. It succeeded for centuries. And in its success and its limitations, it left one of the most enduring and debated legacies of the ancient Greek world.